When a millionaire mocked the humble mechanic, an incredible engine fix revealed an unexpected legacy. Jim wiped the grease from his forehead, the familiar scent of oil filling the air around him. The little auto shop was like a second home. Bright autumn leaves danced outside the large windows, but inside, it was a labor of love. Once a beloved community hub, Jim's shop was now fighting for survival against economic decline. On this day, however, everything changed the day when Tom, the million-dollar businessman with a sneer of contempt, waltzed into town determined to unleash scorn on anyone who wasn't as wealthy as he was. "Look at this place," Tom laughed, hands in his designer pockets, eyes glinting with disdain. The small gatherers of townsfolk turned their heads, burdened by the uncomfortable truth of their own struggles. "Is this where dreams go to die? This dump?" The laughter trickled through the crowd, sharp and cutting. Jim's chest tightened, knowing the hard work his late father put into the shop, a legacy of love and service not just for cars, but for the people of this town. Despite the humiliation, Jim's heart warmed just thinking about the veterans he had serviced for free and the single mothers he helped with broken-down cars, knowing their families relied on him. He had always believed kindness was its own currency. But as Tom's sneering words faded, Jim felt the air shift. His neighbors knew him, respected him, and with each day, they felt the tide of animosity grow against the wealthy businessman and his grasp on their lives. In the weeks that followed, as economic troubles dug deeper, the threat of closure loomed over the shop like a winter storm, a cold breeze of despair. But then, the community gathered in a way Jim had never seen before. They shared stories of his compassion, reconnecting those frayed bonds of support that held them together. One by one, they spoke up. A mother with 2 children, tears sparkling in her eyes, recounted how he fixed her ancient family car for free. A veteran nodded in agreement, recounting the time Jim had eased the burden of his broken-down pickup, knowing he couldn't afford the repair. Their voices wove together, creating a powerful tapestry of resilience, filling Jim's heart with hope. Just as the town rallied, Tom's investments started faltering. Sound ideas turned into flops and his empire began to crumble, unveiling a hollowness that mirrored the laughs he had shared at Jim's expense. The tides, it seemed, were shifting. But then disaster struck. The beloved city bus, a lifeline for families, broke down in the center of town. Panic rippled through the people. Without that bus, connections to jobs and schools vanished. Jim sprang into action, his hands instinctively knowing the right fix. After hours of intensive work, with grease and sweat pouring down his brow, the bus roared to life, an emblem of hope for the community. But as he emerged to cheers of gratitude, he caught sight of Rachel, Tom's daughter, watching from the sidelines. Her eyes sparkled, and admiration flooded her heart as she secretly witnessed the heart and determination that came from true hard work. Just when the atmosphere seemed hopeful, the tension rose again. As Jim stepped forward, ready to forge a connection with Rachel, an angry conversation broke out nearby. When Jim spotted Tom glaring from the shadows, feelings of pride battled with the urge to flee. Their eyes met, that moment crackled with unresolved conflicts, bubbling resentments fueling the town's underlying tensions. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the town holding its breath, a heated exchange erupted. Words about dignity, compassion, and the true meaning of community echoed between them. Each word scratched at the tension, pulling at the heartstrings of those around. Just then, the sputter of an engine interrupted their escalating conflict. All eyes turned, hearts racing, as they waited to see if this moment would mark the path to unity or division in a town so beautifully woven together by shared values. What would it mean for Jim, for Tom, and the town? Would they find common ground, or would pride tear them apart? As Jim stood amid the crowd, the tension hung thick in the air. Strangers shared glances, each person feeling the weight of a choice that could change everything. Tom's voice sliced through the silence again, a mocking tone spilling into the open. "What's so special about this mechanic? Just another nobody trying to play the hero." A murmur rippled through the townsfolk, anger bubbling beneath the surface. Jim's heart raced, feeling that prickling of self-doubt mixed with an overwhelming sense of determination. His hands trembled slightly, but he took a deep breath, steadying himself. "It's about more than cars, Tom," Jim finally called out, his voice strong despite the fear knotted in his stomach. "It's about caring for each other. This community deserves better than your sneers and superiority." Tom bristled at the challenge, stepping forward, eyes narrowed. "And what exactly have you built here? A rusty shop and a few feel-good stories? That one tea save you?" But as Jim's gaze swept over the crowd, he found solidarity in their faces. His friends, neighbors, people he had helped over the years stood behind him, united. A woman stepped forward, her chin raised defiantly. "He may repair cars, but he boosts our spirits. This town is more than the money it makes." Others nodded in agreement, words of support swelling like a tide. In that powerful moment, Jim realized connections between people mattered more than any dollar amount. He felt Rachel's gaze still lingering on him, a flicker of respect mixed with confusion washing over her features. Maybe she understood, in her own way, that kindness, loyalty, and compassion couldn't be bought. But then, in the midst of the encouragement, Tom's lips twisted into a sneer. "Keep telling yourselves that fantasy. You think you're doing fine. You'll be buried in this dying town while I move on to greener pastures." The stakes had grown higher, and with each passing moment, Jim felt the urgency building within. "You can run, Tom, but it won't change the hearts of this town." A sudden cheer erupted among the gathered townsfolk. It felt like a warm wave washing over him, igniting a fire within. Jim grinned, feeling the adrenaline of protest surging. This shop is more than metal and screws. It's filled with love and moments that matter. As the cheers echoed louder, the crowd took a step closer to Tom, urging him out of his bubble of arrogance. It was as if they were standing shoulder to shoulder, a powerful alliance against contempt. But just as it seemed like they might force Tom to back down, he turned coldly to Rachel. "You know what to do. We can't allow this nonsense to continue." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Jim's stomach dropped. Rachel looked caught between two worlds, one of her father's privilege and the other of Jim's humble heart. "Do what?" Rachel queried, frowning, her voice shaking slightly. "Is this what you call success?" The tension in the air thickened, and Jim could see the weight of expectation bearing down on Rachel. Was she ready to shatter the illusions her father had built around her? With each heartbeat, the moment stretched, pulling tighter as the future lay in balance. Would she take the path laid out by Tom, or forge her own path alongside Jim? The power to turn the tide rested in her hands now, and Jim felt every eye in the town shift toward her, waiting to see what she would choose. In that charged silence, with hope and apprehension intertwined, the irreversible choice was about to be made. What would Rachel decide? Would she embrace a future of compassion over greed? Rachel stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. The silence felt heavy, each pause stretching on like an eternity. She could feel the weight of her father's expectations pressing down hard, but the warmth of the townspeople's support wrapped around her like a comforting embrace. She took a deep breath, glancing from Tom's hard, unyielding expression to the hopeful faces of her friends and neighbors. Did she really want to follow the path that her father had laid out for her? The glittering life filled with luxury, but devoid of the heartfelt connections that Jim had fostered. She could feel the ground beneath her shifting, her internal compass warring with the belief systems she had grown up with. She began, her voice trembling slightly. "I know this town matters. I see how hard you all work to lift each other up." Her words felt like a lifeline thrown to the crowd. But I also know that my father isn't wrong about everything. There's value in prosperity, in success. Prosperity? Jim interjected, his heart racing as he stepped closer. True success isn't measured in dollars or cars, Rachel. Look around you. It's about who we uplift, who we stand beside when times get tough. Rachel released a shaky breath, her mind racing. But how do we make the town better if we're not successful? She pleaded. How do we keep the mechanic shop alive, or any of the small businesses, if we can't attract money to invest in them? Success doesn't always come with money, a voice rang out from the crowd. It was Mrs. Wilkins, a beloved local librarian whose eyes sparkled with wisdom. It comes from standing together as a community. What can a fortune do if broken hearts remain? Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd. Jim could see the cracks forming in Rachel's resolute facade, and he pressed on. We can make this place thrive through solidarity. We just need to be brave enough to face that challenge together. It won't be easy, but we have each other. As Rachel caught his gaze, she felt something shift within her. All her life, she'd been taught that her worth was tied to economic success. Yet here was Jim, the embodiment of what truly mattered: integrity, warmth, and a deep love for the community. For the first time, she truly considered stepping away from the familiar, from the privilege that defined her upbringing. But if I stand against my father, Rachel murmured, her voice thick with uncertainty. Is there any coming back? The crowd shifted, the murmurs intensifying. It was more than a question, it was a plea caught in the tension of the moment. No one will force you to choose, Jim replied, his voice steady. What matters is that you choose for yourself. The powerful energy in the air felt almost electric, hope emanating from it. Would she find the courage to defy expectations? Would she take the leap of faith? As Rachel's gaze lingered on Jim, she could see the determination etched into every part of him, while the townsfolk watched her with bated breath. Her world had just opened up in ways she never imagined. Maybe she started, feeling the possibility flutter within her. Maybe it's time for a different kind of success. Just then, there was a thunderous applause, rising with deafening clarity through the town square. The overwhelming sound wrapped around her, fueling her resolve. Her heart raced as she felt the shift underfoot, the tide turning with every clap reverberating through the bones of the town. As Rachel opened her mouth to speak again, ready to declare her choice, the ground shuddered beneath them. A distant rumble echoed ominously, the ground swelling like a portal ready to unleash an unexpected storm. What would this mysterious shift mean for their fragile unity? And how would it test the very decision Rachel was about to make? The ground quaked once more, a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the very air itself. Rachel's heart skipped as the applause faded into a stunned silence. The crowd swayed slightly, their faces revealing a blend of confusion and concern. A murmur swept through the gathering, voices entwined with disbelief. The earth is restless today, Mrs. Wilkins said, her gaze scanning the horizon. She scratched her head, the worry lines deepening on her forehead. What does it mean? Rachel didn't know. It felt like every heartbeat was a tick against a clock, building tension that hung thick and heavy. She turned her eyes back to Jim. He seemed to hold his breath just as tightly, his brow furrowed in concentration. We need to regroup. Jim called loudly, rallying those around him. The townspeople shuffled together, a cluster of concerned faces turned toward Rachel. Let us stay calm. We've faced tough times before, and we're stronger together. Rachel's breath came in short gasps as she wrestled with the magnitude of her next words. She searched the collective expressions: fear, hope, uncertainty, and felt the weight of her father's expectations pressing down heavier than before. What would he think if he could see her now? Torn between two worlds, feeling the inevitable pulse of change that was creeping into her life. Maybe this is a sign, she whispered, more to herself than to Jim. It felt risky to voice her thoughts out loud. Maybe it's the universe pushing me to make a choice. The crowd stirred once more, her hesitance drawing them into a tight circle of concern. Jim reached for her hand, grounding her in the moment. "It's about our future," he said softly, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "You can break free if you want to." Rachel took a moment, letting the rhythm of the moment settle against her heart. The chaos brewed and mirrored the storm within her. She looked up at the towering clouds gathering ominously in the distance, a reflection of all her feelings. I want to fight for this town," she declared suddenly, her voice ringing through the air, unwavering. The crowd brightened, the spark of hope igniting once more. "I want to stand with you, with all of you." A cheer erupted, filling the air with a youthful exuberance. It was a heartwarming reminder of what she was trying to fight for. Still, the tremors beneath their feet reminded her of the uncertainty ahead. Rachel gazed into the faces of her friends, her neighbors. Their eyes reflected a resolve that surged within the tremors shaking the earth. With newfound clarity, she thought about what truly mattered: community, love, and standing for something bigger than herself. But just then, the ground heaved violently. The earth cracked open in front of them with a loud pop, sending dust and rocks scattering. Rachel stumbled backward, pulled down by the gravity of fear. Instantly, she grasped Jim's arm, her eyes wide. "Get back!" Jim shouted, his own panic laced with urgency. The crowd surged backward but held their ground, hearts racing and voices raising. "What is happening?" someone cried out, echoes of alarm marking the escalating situation. Rachel felt her heart pounding in her throat. It wasn't just the unpredictable fury of nature that sent waves of anxiety through her, it was the eerie uncertainty of an unseen challenge, something looming just beneath the surface of their seemingly straightforward world. Would Rachel find the strength to navigate not only her father's influence but also this new, confusing chaos? What more would the earth reveal about their fate? The ground stilled, a deceptive calm settling over the crowd. Yet, Rachel sensed the uncharted path ahead would demand more than they could imagine. There was something greater at play, something that would test their resolve, their bonds. And as she braced herself against the stirring winds, one question loomed large in her mind: if they survived this turmoil, what foundation would they build together? The tension hung like a thick fog as the crowd collectively inhaled, waiting for anything to break the oppressive silence. Rachel could feel her heart racing, each beat a countdown to the unknown. The ground felt oddly alive beneath her feet, a reminder that they were part of something far greater than themselves. As the dust settled, Jim pulled her closer, his voice steady but low. "We need to check it out, Rach. We can't let fear paralyze us." Rachel nodded, her determination hardening. They were a small town, and together they could face whatever this was. Tentatively, she stepped forward, her senses sharp and her mind racing. What lay in that fissure could either be a disaster or a clue to understand the earthquakes that had begun to torment their lives. The crowd followed, though some hesitated, exchanging worried glances. Rachel's eyes flicked over the familiar faces of her neighbors: Mrs. Wilkins with her hands clasped tightly, Tommy Garcia's knuckles white as he clutched his sister's arm. Each of them had their own fears, and she saw how their strength lay in their unity. "Stay close," Jim shouted as they crept forward. "We're in this together." He brushed away the dirt, revealing a jagged crack in the earth, the edges flaring like jagged teeth. Rachel leaned in, her breath catching. There was something glimmering inside. Shimmering. No, it looked more like water. "Is that?" Rachel whispered, feeling a mix of disbelief and hope. "It can't be," Jim murmured, crouching beside her for a closer look. "Groundwater?" As if in response to his question, a melodic trickle echoed from deep within the crack, flush with an odd warmth. The sound drew the crowd closer, any fear momentarily forgotten. Rachel's heart raced not only from the surprise but also from the potential of what this could mean for their community. "Listen!" someone called out, their voice rising in excitement. "It might be a spring. This could be what we've needed for ages." Hope surged through the crowd like an electric wave. Rachel's mind raced. This water could provide for their crops, sustain them through the dry seasons, replenish what they had lost over the years. Was it possible this disaster had birthed an opportunity? Rachel, Jim's voice pulled her from her thoughts. This could be huge. We need to figure out how to harness it. All that we've been through. He stopped, searching her eyes for understanding. We can make a plan together. She would be the one to lead that charge, she realized. Her father, with all his expectations and demands, would never see this gift. It was hers to embrace, theirs to nurture. But just as that thrill of purpose surged, another tremor coursed through the earth. This one was sharper, more furious, and it reverberated up her spine, knocking everyone off balance. Cries of alarm erupted once more as chaos returned to the forefront, overwhelming the fragile moment of hope. Back, everyone! Back! Jim shouted, but that wasn't enough. Rachel looked at the fissure, fear creeping into her chest. As the ground shifted further, she felt a familiar tension sliding back into her bones. Would this miracle be ripped away just as soon as she dared to grasp it? Is this a blessing or a curse? She thought desperately, her thoughts racing faster than the ground could quake. She reached for Jim's hand, squeezing tightly not just out of fear, but in shared determination. They had to find a way to manage this new and terrifying power. But as she held on to hope, she couldn't shake the feeling that darker forces were stirring beneath the surface. What would be the cost of tapping into this newfound treasure? Rachel made a silent promise she would face whatever came, fueled by love for her community and the burning desire to protect what was theirs. The question lingered in the air as the ground rumbled again, more ominously this time. Would they find the strength to confront the chaos, or would it tear them apart? The aftershocks were relentless, shaking Rachel's resolve and rooting her feet to the ground. A jolt sent people stumbling backward, some falling to their knees, hands clutching their heads as panic rippled through the crowd. Stay together! Jim shouted, his voice cutting through the confusion. Rachel held on tightly to him, her pulse pounding in her ears. The fear was almost palpable, clinging to the air thicker than the dust. It was as if the earth was alive, angry, and twisting beneath them. How could something so promising also feel so terrifying? Look! Someone yelled, pointing toward the crack. The water was bubbling now, an eerie surge warming the air around it as it spilled over the edges. Rachel's eyes widened, a knot deep in her stomach. We can't just let it overflow like that. It could create a sinkhole. Just grab what you can to contain it. Jim urged, his hands already moving to gather debris. The crowd began to respond, rummaging through their surroundings, searching for anything to channel the spring's sudden force. It was still chaotic, but with every breath Rachel took, she felt a spark ignite. The spring could help, but without a plan, it could just as easily destroy everything they had. As people scurried about, Rachel's mind spun. Every instinct told her to take charge. We need buckets, she called. And some tools. If we can divert the flow, we can manage it better. Hands sprang up, neighbors they'd known for years suddenly plunged into action, urgency charging through them. Old Mr. Henderson, a carpenter, sprinted toward his truck, quickly returning with large buckets and some boards. Rachel's heart surged as she watched everyone working together, united by a common goal. Rachel! Jim called, breaking her concentration. We've got to hurry. She turned to him, her resolve firmer than ever. I know. We have to protect our homes and everyone's hard work. They gathered everything they could find, positioning buckets and improvised barriers around the fissure while trying to redirect the flow of water. But then the ground trembled violently again, another wave of energy coursing beneath them. The once bubbling water surged like a wild beast, pushing the buckets aside as it poured out in torrents. A loud cracking sound echoed, and Rachel's heart dropped as she glanced back at the fissure. The very earth seemed to split wider open, as if yawning to swallow them whole. Run! Someone shouted, but fear rooted Rachel to the spot. This was her home, her community. She couldn't abandon them now. Keep working. She called, her voice firm amidst the chaos. Don't let fear take hold. We're almost there. Focusing on the water, she spotted a nearby pile of stones. We can use those. She shouted, pointing. Everyone shifted into action again, rallying around her words. As determined hands began to stack them around the fissure, something deep within Rachel stirred. They were a community, their collective hearts and sweat could drive back whatever chaos the earth had unleashed. Just then, another tremor shook the ground. They all stumbled again, grit and dust swirling around them. The water surged higher, and Rachel's thoughts raced yet again. If they didn't brace for the worst now, it could be too late. But beneath the fear, she felt another burgeoning sensation, stronger than the shifts of the earth beneath her feet. She felt the courage that came from being part of something bigger, anchored by her neighbors who were giving whatever they had. What they faced wasn't just nature's fury, it was a test of their spirit. Hold on. Jim yelled, standing firm next to her. Rachel locked eyes with him. This wasn't just about the water anymore, it was about what they believed they could do together. But as they continued to work, a chilling realization seeped in: what if managing this power revealed hidden dangers they couldn't yet foresee? As the fissure widened once more, Rachel wondered if they were on the brink of liberation or disaster. I won't let us fail, she whispered to the crowd, even as she felt uncertainty coil in her gut. The ground shook violently again. Bits of earth and rock began to tumble into the abyss. Would they find their strength as it evolved into something even deeper than they had imagined? Or would their bonds be shattered by the very thing they sought to control? Rachel took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next, her heart racing with the urgency of the moment. The final pulse of the ground beneath their feet seemed almost like a heartbeat, an echo of both fear and hope. And just like that, the ground split open beneath them, leaving Rachel with a primal scream caught in her throat. What secrets lay beneath the surface, waiting to shift everything they thought they understood? Rachel barely had a moment to process the ground breaking open before she felt herself being pulled back by Jim. Get back! He shouted, nearly dragging her with him as they stumbled away from the widening fissure. Instinct kicked in. Fear was palatable, wrapping around her like a vice. Rachel glanced back just in time to see the ground crumbling further, exposing what looked like dark, swirling shadows beneath. Her heart raced. This wasn't just about water anymore, it was about the very earth shifting, and who knew what lay beneath it. Everyone, step back! She yelled, trying to gather her thoughts and the crowd. It was hard to keep the panic at bay, but desperation fueled her voice. We need to regroup. We can't get too close. People hesitated, eyeing the split in the ground, fear etched across their faces. Many were still clutching their improvised tools as if it could somehow shield them from the danger now before them. Rachel, what do we do? Jim asked, worry deepening the lines in his face. They had worked so hard together, and now it felt as if everything was teetering on the edge of failure. I am not sure, she admitted, shaking her head. But we can't let the water take everything. A frantic heart tugged inside her, it was the spirit of the community they had built. She needed to harness that energy. We need more people to help us. Let us start spreading out, building a barrier farther back to redirect the water before it flows into town. We can't let it reach the houses. Nods rippled through the crowd as the realization sank in. They weren't going to give in without a fight. They might have been scared, but they weren't beaten yet. Within minutes, she watched as her neighbors hurried off in teams, grabbing more materials from their vehicles, bringing old barrels, and tearing up wooden planks from fences to create makeshift barricades. The tension in the air felt electric, it became a rallying cry, one of unity amid chaos. Rachel raced alongside Jim, calling out ideas and directing the flow of their efforts. Over there. We can form a channel using those barrels. She shouted, pointing to a pile stacked beside Mr. Henderson's truck. They worked feverishly, piecing together barriers, every clink and clash of wood resonating with hope as sweat dripped from their brows. Just as they seemed to find a rhythm, another tremor split through the ground. The water surged again, deeper and angrier. A wave of panic overshadowed her focus. Rachel turned, spine tingling. The fissure had grown wider, and swirls of water threatened to spill over the edges like a beast desperate to be freed. "Look out!" someone shouted. The crowd instinctively huddled, and for a moment, time slowed. Rachel locked eyes with Jim, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down. "We can do this together," she said, her voice steadying even when the world around them felt like it was certainly tearing apart. They were building something more than just a barrier against water, they were creating a fortress of resilience. Driven by that collective spirit, she took a breath, feeling the warmth of determination blaze inside her. But as she turned back to the fissure, a shadow came into view, moving in the depths below. It flickered briefly, almost as if it had a life of its own. What was that? A voice came from the back of the crowd, edged with fear. Rachel's heart raced. Was there more beneath the surface than just water? What if they were poking at a hornet's nest? She could feel the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. There were whispers of ancient stories her father used to tell her about the earth and its secrets. "Guys!" Rachel called, her voice rising above the murmurs. "We need to focus. Stay aware of everything around you. Don't let fear control you." The crowd settled slightly, attention drawn back to her, but the unease remained. Together they piled rocks, barrels, and wood. Just as they began to feel the tide turning, the earth rumbled again, a thunderous roar echoed, muffling all voices. Rachel stumbled and fell to her knees. She looked back at the fissure, now exploding with bursts of water and dark mud. "Get back!" Jim yelled, rushing toward her, pulling her up. But there was something in Rachel's gut, a sense that a revelation was near. Shock mingled with anticipation. They were on the threshold of uncovering something profound, but what? As they braced themselves against another wave, Rachel's curiosity ignited. What truths would be revealed from the depths, and would they be ready to face them? The ground shook again, thicker than before, reverberating through Rachel's bones. She struggled against the mass of mud being ejected from the fissure, fighting the instinct to run. This was her home, her friends, and the heart of their community was under siege. "We can't just stand here." Jim's voice cut through the chaos, his grip tightening around her arm. "They're counting on us." Rachel nodded, urgency igniting her muscles. "You're right. We need to get back to work." With renewed energy, they sprinted toward the crowd, moving past anxious neighbors now trying to come together. Rachel's mind raced as she surveyed the frantic activity around her, people wearing expressions of resolve mixed with fear. Dividing their efforts, she quickly delegated tasks, her voice a beacon of urgency. "We need more barriers over there. Form a line. Let us use those rocks." With every shout, she could feel the community responding to her call. They were a huddled mass, each person charged with purpose, working tirelessly to keep the water at bay. Suddenly, a jagged crack snaked down the freshly piled dirt beside them, and Rachel's heart dropped. "Watch out!" someone screamed, and the crowd recoiled. The ground split, sending pebbles cascading down into the dark maw below, as if the earth wanted to swallow them whole. Rachel's instincts kicked in. "Everyone stay back. Keep your distance." But her brave facade was beginning to crack. Deep down, she felt the primal urge to flee. What if it wasn't just water threatening them, but something darker? Something alive. "Rachel." Jim's voice broke through her thoughts, urgency clear. "We need to stabilize everything before the next surge comes." With her feet still unsteady, they raced next to one another. Each moment felt like a heartbeat, like the earth itself was breathing beneath them. They tossed barrels and rocks, working together easily, much like they always had around town. But then, as if in response to their frantic labor, the ground roared again, and burst forth a cascading fountain of mud and darkness. Rachel stumbled backward, tripping over her own feet, eyes wide as she stared into the void. Rachel! Jim reached for her, his face etched with fear and determination. Look! We have to keep working. She blinked away the shock and shook her head to dispel the weight of horror. We can't give up. The words spilled out like a desperate prayer. In that moment, a flicker of light caught her eye beneath the flowing chaos. A glimmer, a shimmer of something not quite right. It was brief, but there was more than just water in that abyss. Her instincts were screaming, it was something almost alive. Before she could say anything, another rumble echoed again. This one was deep, primal, as if the earth was about to reveal its secrets. Rachel's heart was in her throat, a mix of excitement and dread. Why was she drawn to that flicker? What do you see? Jim asked, his eyes searching hers, concern pooling as the moment stretched. I think there is something there. She managed to say, her voice tight with tension. The ground roared in agreement, surging with yet another wave. Rachel! Jim yelled, pulling her aside just as a massive surge of dark water shot upward, scattering debris like furiously flung confetti. The crowd gasped, taking a step back, fear coursing through them like electricity. Rachel remained riveted by the churning water. When it subsided just enough, she leaned closer. There it was again, a shimmer amidst the muck. Was it a trick of the mind? Or was there truth beneath the surface waiting to be uncovered? Guys! Look at the fissure! Someone shouted, pointing wildly. Entranced, Rachel whispered, "What is it?" The air around her felt charged, as if they were standing on the edge of something monumental. Then, out of the whirlpool of darkness, came a shape, something solid, something that didn't belong. The question hung in the air, wild and heavy. What would they find? As the shadow emerged, the ground trembled once more, and the unknown loomed above them, urging them to confront their fears. What would any of them be willing to do to unlock the mystery below? Rachel's pulse quickened. Are we ready for whatever comes next? She wondered aloud, her voice mingling with the fading roars. And as the answer echoed in the air, Rachel found herself already knowing they had stepped toward a revelation that might change everything. The darkness beckoned. Would they answer the call? The shadow was closer now, a shape breaking free from the churning chaos below. A gasp surged through the crowd as everyone instinctively took a step back, fear carving their faces. Rachel couldn't tear her eyes away. The glimmer had transformed into something more substantial, and it loomed just above the fissure like a gateway to another world. Wait! We need to see what it is. Rachel shouted, her heart thudding in a rapid rhythm against her ribs. Jim's grip on her arm tightened, but she pulled free, feeling a mixture of trepidation and exhilaration. Rachel, be careful. He warned, his voice almost lost in the panic surrounding them. She could see his concern, the way his brows furrowed with anxiety. Yet, the pull of the strange object, whatever it was, drew her closer still. As the ground beneath them shuddered, Rachel steadied herself on a lopsided stone. Leaning forward, she strained to gather every ounce of courage as the truth of the shadow unveiled itself. Emerging from the murk was a bizarre metallic object, an artifact perhaps, with engravings flickering faintly beneath layers of sludge. Do you see it? She called out, her voice thick with awe. It looks different. The crowd murmured, hesitant yet intrigued, curiosity flickering in their eyes. The fear of the unknown was palpable, yet there was something about that shape, a promise of discovery that stoked the flames of hope. Be ready! Jim yelled. We might need to pull it out. He dashed back to grab a rope, pulling together a makeshift team among the nearest neighbors. Rachel's heart raced as if each sound reverberated through her chest. She was ready to face whatever lay ahead. On 3, we pull. Jim shouted, rallying everyone's resolve. 1, 2, 3. With a collective heave, they tugged on the rope, the mysterious object only shifting slightly before it began to break free. Rachel could feel the rush of adrenaline as the ground seemed to seesaw beneath her. Mud splattered on her clothes and hands, but she didn't care. What if this was the answer they needed? Bit by bit, the artifact came free, the shimmering surface now visible in the brilliant light that broke through the clouds above. It wasn't just metal, it glowed slightly, casting an ethereal hue over the space surrounding them. "It's beautiful!" someone in the crowd exclaimed. "It could be dangerous." Another cautioned, a thread of fear lacing their words. But Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that this was something that could help them, something that could unlock the secrets beneath their feet. "What if it has power?" Rachel whispered, her mind racing with possibilities. She could feel the collective hope of their community brewing, an unspoken connection forming as they all leaned in closer, their fear mingling with intrigue. As they pulled it fully from the ground, the vibrations through the earth intensified, as if the world was reacting to their discovery. A low hum vibrated, making the air tremble. "Look!" Jim pointed, his eyes wide. "Did you see that? It moved." Rachel took a step back, realizing that they weren't in control anymore. Whatever was happening felt larger than them, a force beyond their town and their struggle. Sweat trickled down her brow, yet her pulse quickened as almost instinctively she reached out, brushing a finger against the strange object. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The humming exploded into a resonating roar, vibrating through the ground. A figure emerged from the void, ethereal and massive, as if formed from the chaos itself. The whole crowd froze, jaws dropped, eyes wide. It wasn't just an object, it was alive. "What have we awakened?" Rachel breathed, the weight of her realization crashing over her. Fear danced beneath the surface, intertwined with the excitement of discovery. As the ancient presence loomed closer, Rachel's heart thumped fiercely. The choice lay before them: would they conquer their fear and forge ahead into the unknown? Or would they retreat back into the safety of their lives as the earth roared behind them, warning of secrets yet to be unveiled? "Are we ready?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as the shadow began to shimmer once again. And in that breath, all eyes turned to the unknown. What horrors or wonders awaited them as they stood at the precipice of discovery? Jim and Rachel stood side by side, their hearts racing as they faced the unknown. The crowd around them shared a collective breath, each person tethered by both fear and intrigue. What had they awakened? The shimmering shadow loomed above, swirling with an energy that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "Are we really going to confront this?" one neighbor whispered, half in fear, half in excitement. Rachel could see the uncertainty written across several faces, mirroring the same turmoil within her. But she felt Jim's warmth beside her, pulling her focus back to the moment. "Yes. We have to," Rachel said, her voice steadying despite the chaos around them. "Whatever this is, it's a part of our story now. We can't just run away." She locked eyes with Jim, and he nodded, his resolve matching her own. The shimmering entity grew clearer, details sharpening into an intricate design, alive with colors and patterns that told a story deeper than any they'd known. For a fleeting moment, Rachel felt an overwhelming connection, a sense of purpose that tethered them to the earth they stood on. With a collective exhale of courage, the townspeople began to step forward, curiosity overshadowing uncertainty. Together, they moved closer to the flickering light emanating from the mysterious object, voices murmuring in a mixture of awe and trepidation. "What if it helps us? What if it gives us resources to rebuild?" someone suggested, hoping against the fears that had haunted them. "Or what if it destroys everything?" another cautioned softly, apprehension hanging in the air. "Listen up." Jim spoke loudly, a commanding presence echoing in the crowd. "We've come this far as a community. If this is a gift or even a challenge, we face it together. Nothing can divide us, especially not now." His voice rang with conviction, words igniting a spark in the hearts around them. Rachel felt her spirit lift. She stepped forward, drawing strength from the unity surrounding her. If we work together, we can harness whatever power this brings. We've shown we can overcome so much already. This is our chance. The crowd began to rally, and with their hearts united, they moved closer to the glowing artifact. Rachel reached out her hand, brushing against the cool, shimmering surface. An electric jolt surged through the air, and she saw visions, memories of laughter, struggles, and resilience flowing from the object, intertwining with their own stories. As they touched it, the shadows pulled back, revealing images of hopes and dreams that had shaped their town over generations, moments of kindness, love, and unwavering support. The fear they had felt began to be replaced by the warmth of connection. The ground beneath them steadied. The fissure stopped rumbling, and they felt a collective sigh. The deep-rooted tension in the air gave way to one of profound relief. The light enveloped them, and it was as though the shadows blended into something bright, a new possibility forming right before their eyes. Together! Jim shouted, extending his hand toward the artifact. One by one, each person reached out, creating a chain of humanity. The moment stretched, each heartbeat answering the call of unity. Suddenly, the dark colors transformed into vibrant hues, casting a rainbow light that sparkled with promise. Rachel gasped. She could feel energy flowing back into them, infusing their spirits with a purpose that transcended their fears. The glow intensified, illuminating the fissure before them, transforming its depths. The energy surged upwards and dissipated into the sky, the clouds parting to embrace the sunlight pouring through. And there it was, a wellspring of hope. Water splashed up from below, fresh and life-giving, streaming out into the community. The earth responded, blooming with vibrance, roots unfurling and flowers bursting forth. The crowd erupted in joyous cheers, relief washing over each person as they realized what they had unearthed together. Unyielding, they stood reunited, hearts soaring, no longer under the shadow of despair. In that moment, Rachel understood. This wasn't just about saving their shop, or the bus, or even about overcoming Tom's mockery. It was about nurturing the connections, the very life essence of their community. All those lives they touched were the lifeblood of the town they called home. Jim turned to her, beaming with pride, and she couldn't help but return his smile, knowing now they had created something enduring. As the sun broke through the clouds, she felt the warmth on her face, a celebration of renewed life and hope. The town gathered closer, unified in newfound determination, ready to forge ahead, standing not just against the darkness but embracing the light they had always carried within. Let South protect this place together. Rachel shouted, the crowd echoing her sentiment as their connection thrummed through the air. And as they looked towards the horizon, hand in hand, they knew this was just the beginning. Together, they would build a brighter future, rooted in compassion and love, a legacy that truly mattered. It was time to celebrate their victory. And it was time to share their story with the world. Now, dear viewers, this is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to like this video and feed the algorithm. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. And don't forget to comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread the message of hope and unity far and wide.